All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to another golf picks video here on the channel. This week, we are looking at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am, which is kind of interesting. There's a couple stipulations here. So there's no cut. It's a field of 80. They play two different courses the first 2 days, and then the last couple, they play one of the prior courses for the remainder of the day. So those two courses are going to be Pebble Beach and then Spyglass, which is out there as well. So just FYI, yes, two different courses, day one and day two. No cut. You move into the weekend, you're playing Pebble Beach. So a lot of what we'll go over today is focusing on that course, but like we always do, we'll dive into this. I'll give you some predictions, some spots that I like. We'll talk about the course, players that fit it, yada, yada, yada. We'll look at some favorites, look at some dark horses. But as always, guys, keep an eye down on the pinned comment of this video. That'll take you to my final plays, so I'm actually rolling with myself. If that does interest you, that's down in the pinned comment. All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. I tell you guys I'm a dummy all the time. They don't suck. They've just been sucking. Get them down to -3 for more juice than Jose Canseco in his prime. Tell me you're new without telling me you're new. So don't go jumping down my throat in the comments, right? If you want to fade me, or if you do want to ride me, this still leaves a bad taste in my mouth, right? And remember, more chins, more wins. All right, so last week we had a nice one here. Our finishing position plays were really great. We go 4 and 2. Sung Jae 450 cash, so plus 450, and then 225 for his top 10. The top 5 was 450. Hayden Springer, who we could have laddered up even more. His top 40 plus 220, and then Lee Hodges as well plus 125. Matchups, which I do consider are old, tried and true faithful, not all that tremendous. We did have the both being cut push here, and then Ludwig Åberg here against Keegan Bradley. Now, if you don't know anything, Åberg came in, played well, and then got sick, and he said he was violent. I think his words were like he's violently throwing up the last half of that tournament, so I guess we can cut him some slack, but that thing looked pretty good for the most part, and then so an L there. And then Sung Jae Im here. This was a risky one, right? Taking him against someone like Hideki, we end up cashing that one for plus 115. So overall, a decent golf week there. We're still down on the season because we're only, I guess, 3 videos in. But if you don't know anything about golf betting, that's kind of the name of the game. You're going to have these losing weeks, and then you're going to have these tidal waves of green weeks. So we're still waiting for one of those. But like I said, nonetheless, good to see some positive sort of happening right now. So like I mentioned, we do have Pebble Beach to dive into in this one. Again, the other course is Spyglass, which is a very hard course. But overall, neither one of these courses all that long. Some similarities, but because we should see 75% of the rounds played at Pebble Beach, we will kind of dive in terms of our deep dive on the course to that course rather than looking at both here. So let's start it off. We do have the Pro-Am, like I mentioned, Pebble Beach, California. This is the Pebble Beach Golf Links course, 6,900 yards, or just over 6,900, par 72. Fairway and regulation here, a lot higher than tour average. This is a very crucial course to be accurate off the tee. Like I said, it's not very long, but the reason fairway and regulations is literally almost 10 percentage points higher than tour average is because guys aren't always hitting driver. You don't really need driver on this course. And in fact, even with the numbers, like there's technically 9 driver holes, and on a few of those, some may not even pull out the driver. Greens in regulation, a little higher than average, but again, it's a little bit shorter, so a lot of the approach shots, if we scroll down and look at this, are coming kind of sub 125. Definitely not like we've seen in previous weeks of a bunch of, shots that are going to be 200 plus in terms of your approach. Scrambling is going to be very important. You could see the 3-putt percentage is down. That's because we do have very small greens, some of the smallest greens out there, so obviously hard to 3-putt when you have small greens. Like even if you miss the green, you get up and down, or you get up and down, and it's a 2-putt, right? Birdies per round a little bit, bogeys per round a little bit less, birdies per round a little bit more. Everything would indicate, oh, this is a course where you can go and score and all that. And it's like, you can if you play it appropriately. And like I mentioned, green size small, they are Poa greens, which we saw, was it last week as well. So that's obviously going to be factored into our modeling here. This is the last few years here, and we could see where guys finished and sort of where they did gain the most of their strokes. And you can see a lot of guys gaining in terms of off the tee, which we don't always see. Around the green, honestly, if you come in the top, if you win this thing or come in the top 2, yeah, very important, but you can see that there's a decent amount of red in there. Same thing with the putting, so it's really going to come down to that off the tee as well as the approach for me. But like I mentioned, scrambling is very important here because you will miss greens, especially if you miss the fairway. Like, accuracy is going to be crazy, or crucial, I should say. If you do miss the fairway, you're most likely going to miss the green. So let's try and be accurate, right? That's built into our model. We already kind of showed this, right? Not exactly the best of going bombing. Even if you do hit it 20 yards longer than tour average, you're only gaining, 1.2 strokes around. So we're going to look at accuracy over distance for sure. And then, like I mentioned, I'm really fixated and focusing on the fact that we do have some short approach shots to consider in this one here today. So really our takeaways there are we're going to be focusing on accuracy. You're not necessarily going to need to hit it far, so more or less driving accuracy doesn't even have to be with a driver. Some scrambling numbers built into our model here. We have a few cool things as well, like approach shots into small greens over the last 40 rounds. These guys have played from 50 to 100 yards. And then stroke gains putting versus the field on POA greens. And then also ball striking is going to be in our model, which we'll look at just a second, just because obviously if we are not always hitting driver, we want guys to be striking the ball well, and that's how you can kind of lead to accuracy, right? So we'll do a few deep dives on some of the favorites here, and then we'll get into some of the names that I like. We're starting off with, obviously, Scottie Scheffler. He is playing here. I know he had the hand laceration on his grip, which is a big deal, but he should be okay, and realistically, you're not going to find a course that Scottie Scheffler doesn't look great on. I mean, his driving accuracy, 69.9 out of this chart of 70. His greens in regulation, super high as well. The one thing I will say is he's diabolical from any distance, right? But he's definitely, because of that ball striking, super good when it comes to, these long approach irons in and whatnot. It's not like he's all that tremendous at the short ones, but I wouldn't say that's a knock at all, right? And then his three-putt. We said, it's hard to three-putt here, but just a 3% three-putt. Like, if he's going to be hitting the greens, he's either making birdies or two-putting, essentially. Around the green, like I said, we do want to look at some strokes gained in terms of scrambling and whatnot. And how about this? His scramble percentage, 2 points higher than tour average. Sand saves, I almost thought this was a typo. 73% compared to tour average of 49.6. So Scottie Scheffler obviously checks the boxes here in terms of this course. So we kind of have to give him credit. But again, it's really hard to find any course that Scottie is not going to light up like a Christmas tree, right? Next up, we have Rory. And the funny thing is that Rory has been playing very well in terms of the numbers that we have. I don't necessarily say finishing positions, obviously, you have the BMW and the Tour Championship last year. And when I say very well, his last aggregate of, 40 rounds, you can see here, we have him off the tees gained, ball striking gained, around the green has looked good. So yeah, Rory does sort of fit this course, other than if you just know Rory, and it's like, well, what's Rory's best quality? I would say him being able to drive it far. He's not always the most accurate. You can even see down here a little bit of an issue, right? So I do think that his superpower is taken out of his bag this week because there's not all that many of the needed to bomb it down the middle type drive holes. So yeah, some things that we can look at would look pretty good. I mean, he's obviously going to gain strokes off the tee because he's a great driver of the ball, but that's not going to be all that necessary. Greens in regulation, he's a little bit above tour average, birdie conversion above tour average, less three putts than tour average. So there's a lot here, like I'm saying, that makes Rory look good, but I don't know if he's going to be the guy that we really love this week. Again, even though, like we showed here, he has some green numbers, and we'll get to this screen in just a second, has some green numbers, but if you take out the off the tee with the driver and stuff, I do think Rory loses a little bit of his zhuzh. You know what I mean? All right, one of the next odds-on favorites here that I want to cover is Colin Morikawa, and this may be, out of the favorites that we have, this may be one of my favorite guys this week. You can see the century this year. Finished second, minus 32 here, 32 under. Total gained almost 15 strokes. Tee to green, 10.5. Ball striking, 8.9. Off the tee, everything looked great, right? His fourth round wasn't even all that spectacular. Third round, decent. Round two, really good. And round one, very good. So he went hard right at the beginning and just kind of stuck with it. We scroll down. His driving accuracy is going to be obviously phenomenal, right? And again, he's only 3 yards longer than tour average, but distance isn't going to make up that much as we may think this week. Like I've been saying, he's going to make his birdies, 40.2% birdie conversion rate. And then from a three-putt perspective, yes, he's a little bit over tour average, but again, I don't think that I could sit here and say that he's going to, be missing many greens. I love his accuracy in this one, so it's hard to three-putt on these small greens. Coming over to the around the green, which again, I do want to emphasize, there's chances guys miss greens with these small ones, right? And knowing the windy conditions, I think it's going to be cold out there in Pebble Beach too. So sand saves, 70.4%. That's obviously great, right? Scrambling, 11 points higher than tour average. Now, some of these numbers, when we look at, sand saves and scrambling, like the good guys are going to have way higher numbers than the tour average. You know what I mean? So yes, it's good to note, but just like we did with Scotty, like we can't say, okay, well, he's, 30 percentage points better. It's like, that's just because he's one of the best players in the world. All right, moving on. Justin Thomas, I think, is going to be a guy that a lot of people are considering. So far this year, T26 at the Century. Looking at his round 4 there was really when he made up, that ground, right? Gained 6 shots that day. Didn't really have a stellar round overall. So that 4th round, he clearly kind of parlayed right into a finish of 2nd for the American Express. And you can even make the same argument. The 4th round was really where he made his bread. So Justin Thomas is a guy that I'm considering here. Now, the driving accuracy looks god-awful, right? Obviously, we still have the sand saves and scrambling. That looks good. But what I'm really focused on is the fact that he is gaining a decent amount of shots here per round from that range that we're really considering, which would be that 50 to the 100 range. His greens and regulation higher as well. So yeah, to me, Justin Thomas, definitely a viable candidate. This worries me a little bit, and at first I was worried about the fact that he hasn't really put together 4 good rounds, but at the same time, he's kind of showing up when it matters, and this is the first signature, or at least on the channel that we're covering as of right now, one of the first signature events where we're really putting emphasis on some of the top guys, right? We didn't do, in the previous videos, or I think we just started doing it last week, we didn't really do these sort of dives or focuses on some of the top guys, so I do think Justin Thomas, it's worth noting that I don't mind him this week. Still think Carl Morikawa is going to be my top dog in a sense in terms of these favorites. And then we already mentioned him, Ludwig Åberg here. Played really well. I mean, look at this. Round 1 at the Farmers, I guess we don't have that measured. Round 2, round 3 starts to go downhill, and round 4 is absolutely abysmal. That's when he, quote unquote, got sick, right? Now, I don't think this accuracy number really says a lot because he is a very accurate golfer. You know what I mean? He can hit it straight and far. So I don't necessarily want to sit here and say that we're going to overreact to that. I do like the idea that we see some scrambling and sand saves, but even him, he's not like what we just looked at with, Justin Thomas, Morikawa, Scotty, anything like that. He also 3 putts, but he does convert his birdies. He's someone that, maybe burned a lot of people last week, and I would consider him this week, but at the same time, heading over to our model here, you'll see that, the odds, plus 18 to 1, like I don't necessarily know if I'm loving him, but he does, like I said, kind of fill up that stat sheet. So let's talk about a few of the guys that we like here. Those are some of the higher up names. Some that we didn't mention, we do have highlighted here, so we'll go to our favorites and kind of go down the list here. So we talked about Åberg. Patrick Cantlay, another one that I would consider. Around the green and scrambling, he's 8th in this field, and obviously that is something that we've mentioned multiple times. You will need to be able to do that, right? And coming off of a nice T5 here at the American Express, round by round, you could see, in the later days, honestly, round 3 looks like it was his best round. Definitely pretty good. He's slightly above tour average in terms of driving accuracy, picking up a decent amount of strokes in terms of being around the green, whether it's scrambling, but then definitely sand saves as well. Doesn't really 3-putt. The one thing with him is it actually looks like in that sort of bucket that we look at, right? He actually loses strokes compared to the field and tour baseline, I should say, when inside that 100 range. So that's something that I guess I would be lying if I said didn't worry me a little bit, but I do think you're getting a guy that, again, in terms of what we're seeing, like scrambling around the green, could be a really leg up in his spot here. Hideki, obviously a good look. He's going to strike the ball really well. His approach, whether it's into, normal sized greens or these small greens, should be very good. His around the green and his scrambling should follow suit as well. Tommy Fleetwood is a name that I think is not being talked about much. Now, he hasn't had a PGA Tour start in a while, if I'm not mistaken, but he's been playing elsewhere and he's been looking okay. Look at that. He tops out the chart in terms of driving accuracy. Around the green, it looks pretty damn good as well, right? Want to see some of these birdie conversions go down, but overall, if he does have the putter going, we should see him do fairly well. And we take a peek. I'm him putting on versus the field on POA greens, right? 10th. So yeah, he's a top 10 guy here. Jason Day was one that I considered just because of this scrambling, but ultimately he didn't really come through for me in any other way, but I do think we still have a little bit of value on him. Now we get into some of our longer shot players. JJ Spawn, a guy that's going to be very accurate, strike the ball well, his strokes gained approach is going to look good. Yes, we're a little worried about these greens specifically. They're small greens and POA greens. That's where he kind of has these reddish pink numbers. Not all that tremendous, but look at how he's played leading up to this. T3, T29, T15. For a top 20 right now, plus 200 could be a decent spot to look. I forgot to mention some of these top guys as well. Scotty, T6 last year, T14 for Morikawa. Justin Thomas, T6, 2 for Oberg, tied for 11th for Cantlay. So we do have some good course history, and I think this is just pulling AT&T Pro-Am. I don't know about majors at this course as well. But anyways, JJ Spawn, definitely someone that we could consider. And then a guy that cashed for us last week, right? We had Lee Hodges right here, top 40. He came through plus 125. Someone that I'm considering this week again. Driving accuracy is going to be good. We should see ball striking look pretty good. His approach should be good. The around the green gives me a little bit of pause, but look at what he's done the last 2 starts here. Gained strokes in both of those tournaments from around the green, so I'm giving him a little bit of credit. Back in 2022, he did miss the cut, but the only place that he gained strokes was around the green, so maybe we'll see this red number turn green, and then obviously good putter there as well. And then Doug Gim. For the odds we're seeing here, some of these things, other than the scrambling and putting, which I mentioned multiple times, but driving accuracy, ball striking, strokes gained off the tee, strokes gained on the approach, strokes gained on the approach from 50 to 100, he's greening out here. So Doug Gim definitely could be a spot in which we look. In terms of how he's been doing to start the year, mixed bag, right? You have the Sony, T72, okay. Around the green, he gained some strokes, that's good. Everything else, not so much. Then T21, well, really not playing all that tremendously overall. And then the Farmers, he gets cut. So he kind of is a mixed bag. But again, we're looking at this, build it out in a way that we weigh with percentages, the things that we like. And he looks like he's kind of greening out what we have, at least from a model perspective. Now, a few other names that I guess we didn't really highlight in this one. We could scroll down. Sam Burns has decent history here, top 10 last year. So far this year, already has 2 top 30s, 1 top 10 as well. A few other ones like Keegan Bradley. Let's see, we just lost our place. Keegan Bradley right here, T15 at the Farmers. Earlier in the Sony, he had a T6. Last year, T11. So there are a few guys that played really well. Bo Hostler, another name. But again, you look at the course history, which is the right side of your screen. You look at recent form. Everything looks good. And I've been talking about Bo Hostler a lot in my videos lately, but nothing really jumps out to me when it comes to accuracy off the tee, strokes gained. Ball striking and strokes gained on the approach really, I think could hurt him here. If we do want to do a little bit of a dive into him and take a peek at what could matter, yeah, that's going to matter. His strokes gained on the approach when it comes to those short ones would matter. Around the tee, he should be good. So this is definitely one that's viable, but this is looking at the last 24 rounds and whatnot. When we do look at it like this, is comparing it to a lot of the field and very specifically, small greens and stuff like that. When we do the deep dive in the player card view, we're not getting that sort of filtering out. But, numbers are numbers here. Some look good, some look a little weary. He does have, coming into this with extremely good form, and he's played really well here in the past. Maybe Bo Hostler is a name to throw at you as well. In fact, we might just mark him for now. Now, one guy I wanted to note was Jordan Spieth. Obviously crushed it here early on. Not in the last couple of years. He had surgery, feels good now, maybe in a better situation, better spot. I don't think that, Spieth is a bad look this week. I don't think that I'm totally getting involved with it, but I did want to mention him before we kind of closed up shop here for the video. But one more look at the guys that we have favorited. Scotty Scheffler, Colin Morikawa, and I do think Morikawa is sort of my horse this week. You know what I mean? The guy, like we had Sung Jae. We picked the one guy, had him top 10, top 5, and we loved what we got out of him. I think Colin Morikawa, this course fits perfectly. Justin Thomas, if his driving sticks around, I do like him as well. Maybe in a matchup play if we can get one. Oberg, I'm still kind of kicking around in my head. Is he healthy? What happened last week? Was it really sick? Who knows, right? Cantlay, Matsuyama, and Fleetwood, all in the same bucket to me. I think if I had to pick one of these, it might be Fleetwood. I'd probably go Fleetwood, Matsuyama, and Cantlay. But those are definitely some matchup plays that I'm looking for. Maybe a sprinkle on top 10 for Fleetwood. Jason Day, He's been playing really well. He's played well here in the past. You could see Bo Hostler, we just talked about, JJ Spawn, Lee Hodges, and Doug Gim, all kind of my sleepers in a sense. So this is what we have. These are the guys that I am liking. Wanted to show you that. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in terms of our list. But always, guys, keep an eye down in the pinned comment. It'll take you to the Guy Boston Sports site, and anything that we add, any matchups or finishing positions, anything like that will be listed there with the odds and the book that we get it at. So make sure to keep an eye on that in case we add anything, or say there's something that we really like here, and then the more and more we look into it, we're like, yeah, we're not going to roll with it. He won't be in the final plays, right? So make sure to keep an eye on that. But yeah, if you made it this far into the video, go ahead and comment 20. I know these golf videos are aren't garnering the most amount of views. Those come down to the main sports, right? NBA, NFL, MLB, that type of thing. Right now, NBA and NFL. But I love golf. I love betting in golf. And even with the few eyeballs that we're talking about, I think we're really kind of ironing out a cool community for the golf the golf betting space. So yeah, really do appreciate you if you've made it this far into the video. And I'll catch you guys in the next one, right? Peace out.